From the Generation 1 comics, to the decades of animated series, to the blockbuster live-action movies, this is From Cybertron and Beyond, with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of From Cybertron and Beyond, a Transformers podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, Transformers fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're back to talk about Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
Indeed we are. We're finally both in a position to where we have seen it, and we can now share our thoughts and review on it. So, Donnie, just before we kind of get into that, it's worth noting that Transformers Rise of the Beast has passed the 400 million mark at the worldwide box office. Mm-hmm. I believe, and it's domestically, I think it's hit past 150, or it's hovering, just shy of that mark.
Which is saying something, since so many movies are struggling right now.
Which is really
box
good.
Office, yeah.
I mean, the fact that domestically, it surpassed both The Last Night and Bumblebee,
which is not as impressive, but Bumblebee is impressive.
Right, and worldwide, it'll probably finish equal to Bumblebee. Which again, look, Rise of the Beast probably, I think, carried around a $94 million budget, higher than Bumblebee had. But I think what the goal should be at Paramount is rehabilitating the brand.
That's a good way to put it.
And I think, Bumblebee and now Rise of the Beast are taking steps to do that. And as you alluded to, the 400 million mark, while it seems low compared to the Transformers films of the past, it's an impressive number given the climate the box office is at right now. A lot of big budget tentpoles that we've seen come out this summer are either coming slightly under expectations or predictions, or severely underperforming and not delivering. I don't need to tell you which movie I'm talking about.
Yeah, you might say they're in and out in a flash.
Yeah, let's not beat that dead situation any worse. I don't want to insult any horses by using the phrase, so I won't. But so yeah, I think what I think is the indicator here is that this one was liked. The legs have stabilized after a weekend, after the second weekend drop. But I think what is key for the next Transformers film, not the animated one, that's in some stage of production because there's currently a strike, so who knows where they're at with that. But for the next live action film, whenever it does happen, I think the takeaway is if you scale back maybe just about 30 million from your budget, you'll be making profit for sure. People scoff when I say that. Well, but it's a Transformers movie. Yes, and there should be no problem with making a Transformers movie in the range of 100 to 175 million. I think all studios unless it's a major Avengers movie or a future Justice League movie down the line, need to get away from this $200 million plus extravaganza of budgets, because it's just not sustainable right now. It clearly, as the market is showing. So, again, I like to be an optimist but a realist on this show. Yeah, I know you're the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Despite what some box office prognosticators and pundits will tell you, the box office is not back, folks.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
We can't go through them all here, but yes, the box office is still soft in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and so, studios, once the strikes are over, are going to have to readjust their way of thinking. And it's like we've seen a Transformers film in the 100 to 150 million range. We've seen two of them, Bumblebee and the first Transformers film, and they still look phenomenal.
Both of which did very well.
And they still have, excellent looking set pieces, right? So I think
learn from the Green Lantern movie. Don't over budget yourself.
Yeah, that was.
You knew I had to get.
And I enjoy that movie. So.
Well, likewise.
Which we still haven't reviewed on our Green Lantern show. We'll have to remedy that.
And if you'd like to see that, tune into the Emerald Echo podcast, available right here on Multiverse Musings, the vidcast on YouTube.
And notice I've started to undo my bottle cap, because every time he mentions Green Lantern, you have to take a drink, and it's non-alcoholic, because at the rate Donnie mentions Green Lantern, I'd be drunk on the air, or not on the air, but on whatever this is, whatever you qualify
That's
this
right. Yeah.
as. So the box office is fine. It's I think it'll be a solid return. And if you didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, you can now watch it at home on streaming.
Mm-hmm. And I believe it's about another 6 weeks. It'll be out on physical media.
It's VOD right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could purchase it. I don't think it's on your atypical streaming scenario where you could just watch it as part of whichever.
No, you have to purchase it right now.
Yeah, so.
Much like Guardians of the Galaxy. So
I guess it would be Paramount Plus, right? Would be the one that it would be eventually find its way onto.
I believe so. Why don't you keep, and I will check that out for our listeners here who may be interested.
Well, I think that would make sense. But again, I think I saw it listed for like 24 to $26.
Mm-hmm. Which is not bad. That's the price of a DVD. So
yeah, and which when you could, and here's the story. Here's what I'll say. When I went to watch Rise of the Beast, I bought 2 tickets. I'm pretty sure it was IMAX. And I spent about $48 on just those 2 tickets alone. Then you add, a drink and popcorn.
Drink for $9.50 or something.
Yeah, and so then it becomes obviously more. So that goes back to what we were saying before. I think a lot of people, when they look at the prices of movies now, are going to say, well, if I have just a little bit of patience, I can wait a month and a half to 2 months and watch it for half the price on my sofa.
Yeah.
With my 4K big screen TV and oftentimes sound system. So that's another contributor to the box office situation.
Well, actually, according to this, it's going to be a couple of more months before we get the Blu-ray and the DVD. So yes, right now you have the opportunity to watch it on digital. You may want to take that.
Yeah, especially if you haven't seen it yet. Definitely.
Yes.
If you've seen it and just want to wait for the physical media, then you're going to have to wait a while. And the reason why it's taking so long is because it's still holding up well in theaters. So why would they rush to take it out of there to put it on physical home media, right? So,
and I really do think it's one of those movies where And I say this as somebody who greatly prefers to watch movies at home. You do lose something with this kind of movie
Oh, sure.
when you watch it at home. It is
Oh,
a
sure.
great theater experience.
Sure.
With the number of
Agreed.
characters and the massive panoramic battles.
Yeah, I agree.
It really was a fun experience for me. So.
I mean, there's a reason why I chose so far. I've chosen the movies that I've chosen to go watch in theaters. You know, I think Blue Beetle is going to be the last hurrah for me in theaters for at least the summer, and depending, you know, what mood I'm in come December when Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom comes out. You know, ideally I want to see that one in theaters as well because it's DC, so I'll probably do it. But in terms of summer movie going, I think Blue Beetle is the last one I'll be venturing to the theater for. Yeah. But yeah, so I've been more selective, and I used to go to the theater, Donnie. I remember me and Dave would go. Obviously, this was pre-pandemic.
Right.
Every like blockbuster movie, we'd pretty much go see. So, you know, there'd be some times where we'd go 1 week, we'd go see one movie, the next week we'd be right back seeing another. But ticket prices were a lot cheaper back then.
Right.
So
I remember one summer before I got married, going like every week, literally all through the summer. I would pick some, even things I didn't necessarily want to see, were like, you know, burning desires to see. I still went and went ahead and took it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Utilized the entire summer.
You know, I think habits are changing, and I think the studios gotta readjust. You know, adding higher priced, more premium screens is not going to get people back into the theater. I just want to. I hate to break it to them, but making me have to pay more is not going to do the trick. I just a 411 on that notion, because I know that's the notion that they're toying with, which is I don't know. To me, I highly doubt. Like, how much more than $50 for two people can somebody justify spending?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'll pay higher than $50 if Margot Robbie, Haley Steinfeld is sitting in the seat beside me. By the way, we're to both of those ladies on the list. But, you know, if they're sitting in the seat beside me, then sure.
Yeah.
How much I gotta pay? You know? But otherwise,
I was thinking about you the other day. I saw it was Margot Robbie and was it Liv? I think it was Liv Morgan.
Yes,
was actually at the Barbie premiere, and I saw a picture of the two of them together.
I think I tweeted that the multiverse, there's shenanigans going on when two multiverse wives are on the same Earth. That's when the skies start to get red, Donnie. And we know what happens when the skies get red.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
At least in the DC pantheon. I don't know what it means in the Transformers world, but you know,
red skies are never a good sign.
Yeah, I would venture to say not. But the box office is doing, like I said, reasonably well, given the climate. So I think that's a positive. And as we said, for those of you who haven't seen it, it is now available on VOD platforms. So
you can watch it at home.
Go ahead and take advantage of that if you have not seen the film yet. That's it in terms of news, really.
There are a lot of positives, and we're going to talk about those right now or after the break.
After the break, but shortly, very shortly. Yeah. So take a break. You know, go get a beverage, or hey, if you want to have some popcorn while you're watching this podcast and vidcast, go for it. Just don't throw it at us on the screen.
Right. And you won't have to pay $15 for it for a little bucket like you do at the theater.
And you know, if you really want to, help us out, pause this video, go download one of our other, videos, like maybe a Green Lantern episode, or one of our Batman episodes, or so, and listen to that after you've done this, so you can get a full, you can finish that popcorn container, with a full night of listening to us or watching us, which,
But also take a few minutes to go tell all of your friends to subscribe to this channel.
Yeah, that of course, that as well. But we'll be right back, and we'll talk Transformers, Rise of the Beast. Stay tuned.
Don't go anywhere.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back. And we're beastly.
This is true on both counts. So, of course, you and I have finally both seen Transformers Rise of the Beasts. In terms of hearing about this film, Donnie, and going into it, where were you? Like, what was your hype level?
I was very excited. I was able to avoid the big event at the end. That was not spoiled for me.
I'm so glad.
You know, I still love this franchise, even with some of the missteps in the past, but I was a huge fan of the soft reboot with Bumblebee. And going into this, being able to see the Maximals and Unicron and Scourge, I was very excited because, again, these are very familiar characters to me.
Right.
And, you know, I sat in the theater and there was only 4 other people there. And so, yeah. And so, you know, I felt safe and it was a very pleasurable experience to see the Transformers come to life again. And I also think that there have been some improvements with this franchise, and we'll talk about those now.
Indeed. Yeah, for me, I was very excited. You know, I loved Bumblebee, you know, the soft reboot, as you mentioned it. And so when they said we were going to get another live action, but this one was going to be more of a big ensemble that we were used to, of course, I was amped up. The director was somebody that I thought was interesting, given that he had come off of Creed 2, and I really enjoyed the Rocky and Creed / franchise.
Oh, likewise.
So I thought that was a good coming soon. The Rocky cast. No, I'm kidding.
The Rocky Transformers crossover.
Yeah, well, I'd read that comic. And Creed they're doing Creed comics, so why not?
Yeah.
You know, I'd read that crossover. But, you know, so I was very intrigued by the director chosen. And then we started hearing about, you know, that it was going to be taking place in the 90s, set in New York.
Mm-hmm. And they definitely let you know that it was the 90s. There were a lot of little...
absolutely. And that, you know, then the reveal came that there were going to be the Maximals, which is taking its cues and introducing characters from Beast Wars, which has never really been done.
That's smart marketing. You're looking at the G1 Transformers combined with another generation of kids who really like the Beast Wars show.
Yeah. It's like, you know, that was very smart on Paramount's part. It'd almost be like if Warner Brothers was smart and capitalized on the Batman Beyond idea, but God forbid they do that, because why do they want money from the people that are now 30 that love that show? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway,
excellent
Paramount,
point.
Good for you, Paramount. Very smart decision.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that was intriguing, and you know, then you start seeing trailers and the look of them. So I was really hyped, and you know, it felt like forever since Bumblebee had come out. Given that was one of the last movies before the world went to hell in a handbasket. You know, so it did feel like the wait was longer than it actually was. So I was very much amped for the movie. As I mentioned earlier before the break, I saw it in IMAX. There was about 15 people. So I too felt safe going to the theater. And yeah, overall, before we get into spoilers, I had an absolute blast with this. The Transformers are on their way back, is what I could say, and in a big way. So let's get into it, Donnie. Give us the nuts and bolts, general description of this particular film.
Well, it starts off on the home world of the Maximals. And they have come under attack by a very familiar villain in the Transformers universe, the Dark God Unicron. And in this particular continuity, his heralds, the Terracons, and they are an army and an army of Predacon Scorpions led by Scourge, seek to get the transwarp key, which can open portals through space and time for Unicron.
Yeah, and that I was really taken aback in terms of that opening sequence, where we obviously see Unicron. He gives his orders, and then we see Scourge attack.
Yes,
and that fight between Scourge and what was the Maximal?
Ape Link.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes,
which was a deep cut for the Beast Wars show. But seeing that battle between the two of them,
Scourge was very threatening, very ominous in this.
Yeah, and the cool thing was before that, you got the handoff of to Optimus Primal. He says, I'll hold them off, but you're the leader now, right? So it was kind of that sacrifice that was made so that the rest could live. But the battle was intense, pretty vicious. But what I loved about it was, again, this is becoming a trend, and I like this trend. I could actually see who was fighting who and tell them apart. It's a nice thing, Donnie.
Wasn't it pleasant?
Yeah. I mean,
we've talked about that on our past podcasts. It's not that we don't appreciate the attempts at realism with some of the Bayverse Transformers, but when everybody is metallic colored and there's just, this mishmash of metal on the screen, sometimes it's a little difficult to know what exactly is happening here. There was not that issue with this movie.
It's nice not to get a headache when I'm watching a Transformers movie.
Yeah, the use of color is very important here because that helps you distinguish color and the body modeling for each character. Very distinct.
Yeah, the colors really popped.
Yes.
So we see the remaining Maximals, kind of take off in their ship, and
they use the key to flee to Earth.
Yes. And next thing you know, it's 1994.
1994, yeah. It was a good year.
I was 11 years old in 1994.
I was in college.
So. Just to place. Yeah, you were about 21, because we're 10 years apart, my friend.
1994, that was the year that Kyle Rayner was born. So
yeah, I knew you were
not born in the continuity, well, born into the DC Comics.
Yeah, into comics, yeah.
If you want to hear about that, you can on the Emerald Echo podcast.
And if you're going to constantly make Green Lantern reference, here's what I'll reference. In 1994, the Leafs made it to the Western Conference Finals against the Vancouver Canucks and lost in Game 7.
Right. And haven't been back, am I right?
Oh, no. They went back in 2002 to the conference finals.
Okay.
And they haven't been back there since.
All right. I'm a Leafs fan, but that's kind of that happened before my fandom started.
I just want to show how long, ladies and gentlemen, the point I'm trying to make with that reference is I'm trying to show how many years that they've been breaking my heart. I just throw that out.
Yeah, and a person could have been born then, and now they'd be a legal adult, 21.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway,
and not have seen any of that. Which
so back to the story. We go back to Brooklyn in 1994, where we meet an ex-military electronics expert named Noah Diaz, who has a sick brother. So what he tries to do is steal a Porsche, only to find out that it is the Autobot Mirage, who is in his disguised form as a Porsche.
So a couple of things about this whole dynamic before we get to the mirage of it all. Yeah. I really like the brother dynamic. It really grounds the film into something relatable and tangible. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you see the younger brother is sick, and one of our main protagonists is doing things that are a little bit nefarious, let's call them.
Well, there's a lot of moral ambiguity. He knows some things are wrong, but he's desperate.
Right, but the reason he's doing it because he can't get the health care that his brother needs. So you sympathize, sympathize with that. Also, I got to shout out to the little brother, because, and more specifically, the wardrobe department. Because I don't know if you noticed, but I did, Donnie. The little kid was wearing a Power Rangers T-shirt, and I'm like, that kid is a smart little boy there. I'll tell you. So good on the kid, good on the wardrobe department. I like that reference, but so.
By the way, we also have a Power Rangers podcast here. I'm not on it, but I do edit it. So
yes, Donnie does. I get it, and I'll shout him out on this show. Donnie is very humble, but Donnie does a spectacular job with the editing of all our shows.
Well, thank you.
Really, the only reason I sound half as good as I do is because of Donnie's masterful work that he does, and all the graphics and all the wonderful things you see and hear. That's because Donnie puts it together in a masterful way. I may give him suggestions here and there, but he does the heavy lifting. So thank you, sir.
And then he sends me threatening letters. Just kidding.
Well, listen. I don't pay him exorbitant amount of money, and I don't want him to go on strike because there's too many strikes going on already. So I thought, let me give him the praise that he's due.
I don't think there's a podcaster strike.
we should start a union.
There might be some podcasters out there who would be missed. I'm not sure we'd be among that group.
Yeah, they'd probably say, "Get lost, you too," losers, as Kilowog would say. Exactly. So well done on all your editing. And yes, we do have a Power Rangers podcast, which I encourage you to go in and check out if you are a Power Rangers fan. But yes, so that whole scenario of the stealing of the Porsche, which ends up being Mirage, was absolutely hilarious.
I agree. And I instantly liked Noah.
Right.
He was somebody who very relatable because he was trying to do the right thing, but didn't know if doing all the right things and trying to live by the system was going to meet the needs of his family.
Right.
So you felt for the guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also,
especially with the thing where he talked about, his little brother not being able to feel his hand or use his hand. Yeah. That really tugged at your heartstrings.
Real life situations that are put into this fantastical scenario that it just helps ground the film a little bit, and gives you a reason to latch on to the human characters. Mm-hmm. We've talked about, to varying degrees, you and I actually really like the first three Bay films specifically.
Sure.
But I find it a lot easier to latch on to and feel for Noah than I do necessarily Sam Witwicky, who is the typical teenager.
Mm-hmm.
It's a typical teenage story, who somehow lucked out and got these two fabulously hot girlfriends, which is the most unbelievable part of this entire franchise. And I'm sticking to that. But I think so. Yeah, I was very easily able to sympathize and root for Noah.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think Shia LaBeouf did a great job as Sam Witwicky, but I miss Sam's parents more than I miss Sam, actually.
I do too. Those two parents were hilarious.
I wish they would show do a cameo. Yeah, that would have been. They could have been
as grandparents, because I want to know, did Sam get married to that girl?
Right.
If he didn't, was it because I stole her away from him? But these are the things I want to know. But
Maybe they could have like been touring the museum,
yeah,
when Elena Wallace was there. So
yeah, that would have been cool.
right.
Mind you, they couldn't have been. Oh, you mean the parents?
Yeah.
The parents, yeah, not Shia LaBeouf, because he probably wouldn't.
No, but they could have been. They could have been young and dating.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the other thing I want to point out about the Porsche scene, specifically with Noah, was when Mirage decides to do what Mirage has to do to get away from the cops, and it starts transforming and all that stuff. And he's hearing the message from Optimus Prime, which I really want to hear on my car radio slash stereo system, whatever you call it, whether you put the iPod in, whatever you do nowadays, where sound comes out of your car. Those are the sounds I want to hear. Damn it, was Optimus Prime's voice.
I'll say this, and I am somebody who I'm a tough sale on car chase scenes. I am usually not impressed by car race scenes because car chase scenes because they all look the same. Not in this case, though. This was really impressive. The way they did this, very inventive, and like I said, like Adam's saying, the way that Mirage kind of used his transforming ability was really cool.
Yeah, and also Noah's reaction was very authentic. Like he's panicking. He's having a full-blown panic attack in the car.
Right.
And again, very justifiable. So he gets away, and we're also along the way. We're going all over the place, but that's how we do it here, folks. There's no rhyme or reason. We just do. But so we're introduced to the female protagonist,
Elena Wallace.
Yes.
Yeah. Who accidentally releases some energy from inside of the transwarp key, which is detected by Optimus Prime.
Yes.
This is happening at the same time that we get this, and this is also how the Autobots end up going after that, and at the same time roping in Noah to their mission.
And even her story is very she's a lord, she's very smart and she knows her stuff.
She's enthusiastic. Again, another character who's easy to like.
Yeah, but she's marginalized at her employment because people like to take the credit for her discoveries. Like her superior,
right,
and takes credit for one of her discoveries and assertions. So again, you can sympathize, you can latch onto a character like that and want them to ultimately thrive and succeed. And that's the key. Is I think one of the keys to the reason why I like this movie so much is because you actually really get invested in the two main human characters that were given here.
Yeah. And at the same time, and if it develops into a love story, that's fine, but they didn't bog down too much of the narrative with that. They didn't try to go right away to
I don't think you get us. I don't know that, by the end of the film, I wouldn't say they're in a relationship.
Right.
So far. Now, if in subsequent films that develops, so be it. But
it's okay to just be friends. There's nothing wrong with just developing into friends.
I mean, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
You get to, dance in a fountain in New York. So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, low-hanging fruit there. Anyway, so drawn by the key's signature, we see that the Terracons arrive on Earth, and we see kind of the first really big skirmish between the Terracons and the Autobots. And the key is stolen, and Scourge really gets the best of Optimus Prime in their first meeting. Maybe a little bit too easily for my taste, but...
Right, yeah. I think so. I think I agree with you there. But man, the absolute chaos that was done to that that museum, that distraction.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like, who's paying for all that?
Exactly. I always think about it whenever it's Transformers, DC, Marvel, whatever. I'm like, who's going to pay for those 10 buildings that just got knocked down?
I mean, in Marvel, it's easy. Yeah, Tony Stark. Well, or now because Tony Stark, spoiler, is no longer with us. Happy Hogan will write the check, right? In DC, it's either Bruce Wayne or Oliver Queen if and when he's introduced. Take your pick on who pays the bill. But in the Transformers universe, who in the hell pays it? Optimus Prime can't hold down a job. I mean, what does he? Who pays? Maybe a certain organization covers the bill. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the scene eventually ends up in Peru, and Elena's studies allow her to.
Before that, let's talk about the meeting of. We should talk about the meeting of the Autobots and the Maximals.
And the Maximals, yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked the interplay between Optimus Primal and Optimus Prime. Primal is a little wary of Optimus. He even says I believe one of the quotes, he's like, he's not the Optimus that I always, thought he would be. And Optimus, it's cool to note here too. Optimus, we're used to seeing him so, gentle and compassionate with human beings, and that is part of his character. But at this point, he's a little wary. He doesn't exactly know if he can trust Noah or humanity as a whole.
Yeah, when
and there's a lot of good development there. Yeah.
When he first meets Noah, he's like,
he's brusque.
He's yelling at Mirage because he's like, why did you bring a human here?
Yeah.
And then the funny thing with Bumblebee was like, but I like the humans, and he's like, and he's of course doing the thing where he talked with the like as a movie, a scene from a movie, and there's a line where Optimus is like, you're no longer allowed to go watch those drive-ins.
Yeah, he's like, you're not allowed to go back to that drive-through, which by the way, I think was a G1 Comics reference, because that was part of Bumblebee's story.
Yeah.
So I think that was a G1 Comics reference.
And he says, he even tells Bumblebee, he goes, I know you have a relationship with the humans, but I don't. So that's obviously referencing at this point his relationship with Haley Steinfeld's character.
Right.
That was the nod to that.
Yeah. Okay, so
yes, eventually once we have the initial meeting. By the way, Ron Perlman as Optimus Primal. Yeah. I mean, isn't it just? I call it ear porn, Donnie. Hearing dialogue exchange between Ron Perlman and Peter Cullen. It's just, it's such a symphony for the ears.
Ron Perlman, I've been a fan of his since Beauty and the Beast was on the air.
Yeah, way back. Yeah.
And way back. And it doesn't matter whether he's playing a hero or a villain, he always brings such character to every role.
Yeah.
He really has I watched him on Sons of Anarchy.
Oh yeah.
Where he played, a very conflicted, but at the same time, ultimately a very nasty character. The guy really has just an amazing amount of talent. And even if it's voice acting, he can really pull you into, the layers of characters that he can bring to a character. So
for sure.
Yeah. All right. So back to the story.
We go to Peru.
We are in Peru, and they meet up with the locally stationed Wheeljack, who leads them to a temple. But it is soon discovered that because they're looking for the other half of the key, that it is not there. And once again, the Terracons attack with Scourge, corrupting Air Razor using Unicron's dark energy. And that was a really impressive scene, watching that kind of, creep over her and start to take over.
That slow burn takeover was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And again, Michelle Yeoh doing the voice.
Mm-hmm.
I know her from Star Trek Discovery. And yes, we have a Star Trek podcast on this network as well.
Right. So. Right here on Multiverse Musings, the vidcast. Make sure to subscribe today.
So, really some really good voice talent. And she did a good job. That character was very empathetic, very intelligent, like very, like calming. She had all those kind of qualities.
Yeah. Let me say this too. That was very emotional when Primal had to kill her to save Elena.
Yes.
That was, again, CGI characters, but they, invested us enough in those characters that when that had to happen, it was very emotional.
Yeah. And what's funny is, like, in Optimus Primal, we see the Optimus Prime that we're typically used to, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But just to go back for a second to ask you a question, Donnie, because I was kind of confused. So, Optimus Primal was saying, he's not the Optimus I would I thought, or I remember hearing about stories about.
Yeah.
So, what, in terms of the timeline of this movie, are the primals, like, are they pre?
Okay.
Are they pre-Autobots, post-Autobots, somewhere in between? I'm confused.
Okay, so this is my take on this. The transwarp key opens a portal through time and space. So I'm assuming that the primals are, because of the way that Optimus Prime, the Maximals, excuse me, the way that Optimus Prime was talking about Optimus Prime, he was from a future version of Earth.
Okay.
Even though you think primals, you think, prehistory, that's not the way that the timeline seemed to be set up here.
Okay. Yeah, because I got confused when he started talking about Optimus as this figure from the past. I'm like, wait, what? I'm confused.
Yeah.
So because when you see the beasts, you're like, oh, prehistoric kind of mumbo jumbo,
right.
But it's not that. But yeah, so. But I liked when he did, when he had to. That was a very intense scene when he had to, kill his confidant, who was corrupted, in order to save Elena. And also, what's cool about those sequences is we start seeing Optimus Prime sort of shift, and his sort of perspective, right?
He starts to recognize the bravery in Noah,
right?
And I really like the one scene where Noah is facing down Scourge, and Scourge is like, "Are you going to fight me alone?" And all of a sudden, Optimus appears, and he is not alone. And
yeah. And again, what we learn is we get a little bit of background situation and mentality for Optimus, in that he blames himself for what happened on Cybertron. Like he's convinced himself that because they can't get home, Cybertron is going to lose. The war is going to ravage his home planet, and it's his fault because he can't be there to assist. Right?
Well, there's an old saying: "Heavy is the head that wears the crown."
Yeah.
And whenever even if you're not a king, when you're a leader, you feel like it goes onto your shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's the way that Optimus seemed to be dealing with that.
Yeah. Indeed. And where do you want to go next? Because we should talk about what happens to Bumblebee, but if there's something you want to talk about first.
Well, we've got to talk about the fact that it looks for a while, Scourge is able to assemble the two parts of the key atop a volcano, and Unicron starts to come through.
Yeah.
And you see the massive nature of Unicron, by the way. I thought that was handled really well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was worried that we might get a situation where it was one or two shots and it would be something like, Galactus in the old Fantastic Four movies, where it was just like, whatever, or Parallax, something like that. And I was like, let this do that character justice. You don't have Orson Welles, but you've got plenty to go on here. So,
and what was cool about both of those examples I thought of both of those films, but I'm like, had they done both of those characters correctly, it would have been something like this.
Yeah.
And so I did think of those two films, but not in, oh my God, I hope they don't screw this up like they did in Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Green Lantern. But it's like, oh, if only Rise of the Silver Surfer and Green Lantern had done something similar, we would have been in better shape with those two films.
Yeah. The effects for Unicron were outstanding.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've talked about, how this film cost $195 million to make. You see every bit of that $195 million on screen. Mm-hmm. Like, the visual effects are incredible. Yeah.
So we see at the end here, Optimus, he's able to kill Scourge, and he's willing to sacrifice himself to let the other Autobots get away. But we see that Noah actually stays around, and Noah and Primal are able to save everyone from being sucked into this imploding vortex. And I like the way that everyone was kind of like willing to pitch in at the very end and work as a team. That's kind of where this built.
And they did it in such a...
It wasn't in a telegraphed way.
No, they broke ground with this third act because, at least in the Transformers franchise, because there is a union of the Autobots and the humans, as there always is typically in the third act of a Transformers film. But in this film, it was a more literal sense because why am I not thinking? The Mirage is wounded, right? And so he gives parts to Noah. Mm-hmm. So that Noah...
For 1 second, I thought, are we going to see the headmasters here? I thought this might be what... That's not what happened. Just,
Yeah. So he
don't mislead anyone.
We have this kind of sort of fusion between like it's like a suit of armor, but it's an Autobot, right? So we have that fusion of humanity and that coming together in a literal sense, and he's able to fight side by side with Optimus. That's something that really is uncharted territories for this franchise so far. Yeah. Right?
And you mentioned
when the humans get involved, it's either... Sorry to interrupt, but when the humans get involved, it's either Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox running, Shia LaBeouf and Rosie Huntington-Whiteley running, Mark Wahlberg
running,
with some sword. We haven't gotten to this movie yet, but somehow he got this ginormous version of King Arthur's sword, and it starts transforming for a reason that was never really explained properly, or we get the military porn in every one of these films. Yeah. There was no military porn in this movie.
Yeah, and I don't.
I got nothing against the military. I'm just saying it's not, for once, the first time in how many movies?
Yeah,
no military.
Yeah. And number one, that's a way to save some money, and at the same time distinguish this film from the others.
Except for a certain organization, which we'll get to.
Which we will get to at the very end here. But yeah, so Bumblebee is seemingly killed in this movie. However, at the end, there's an energy pulse released by the key, and there's a dormant energon deposit underneath the valley where Bumblebee was laid, and that infuses him with enough energy, and he's revitalized. And once again, we see that Bumblebee, in very much keeping with his character, despite the fact that he's one of the smaller Autobots, he's one of the more, battle-hardened Autobots.
Donnie, I've come to the conclusion you cannot have a Transformers movie without Bumblebee. It can't be done.
Like, there are two characters I just don't think... You have to have Optimus and you have to have Bumblebee.
If there is an idiot executive over at Paramount thinking, hey, we can do a Transformers movie without Bumblebee, no, stop. Find another job, do us all a favor, and leave the room. Because if you're talking like that, we don't need that energy in the room. But when speaking of energy, when Bumblebee gets hit with that that Energon sort of influx of Energon, I thought to myself, this is kind of like Energon Viagra. He's just he's hit with it, and a couple of minutes, and he's like springing to life. And what a badass entry when he comes down with the guns blasting.
Yeah.
I love that scene. Here's my only issue. Why was that ruined in the trailers?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Keep some of the crap out of the trailers.
Yeah. That maybe they should have left that out and let that be a surprise. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it'd be like the Ultimate Warrior running in whatever WrestleMania to save Hulk Hogan from the Papa Shango and Psycho Sid.
That was WrestleMania 8.
Thank you. I knew you'd know which one it was. But that one, like I was robbed at that moment.
Yeah.
Would have been cool if they had when Bumblebee was coming down like that. If they would have had the Ultimate Warrior Steve music going blaring as well, it would have been cool.
What would have been cool if Bumblebee would have been kind of disoriented, and we would have had to see like Superman fighting the rest of the Justice League.
Scourge comes out like Papa Shango.
Now we're going to confuse everybody on the people who listen to this podcast. Are like, what?
We do have a wrestling podcast which will explain who the hell Papa Shango is.
Exactly. You can hear that on Wayback Wrestling Mania, available right here on YouTube. So
I'm just upset that was spoiled in the marketing.
Yeah. But again, that was a great moment, and it, like I said, it keeps in character with Bumblebee. It keeps in continuity with his character that he is one of the more formidable Autobots, despite the fact that he's not the biggest Autobot. So
Bumblebee is like the Flash of the Transformers universe. Right. It's not the live action movie one, because unlike that one, Bumblebee is likable. But yeah.
So now the Autobots, in the aftermath of all this, they have no way to return home to Cybertron.
Right.
So Earth is now kind of officially their new home.
Right.
And we also see that things turn out well for Elena. She receives some recognition for discovering a temple in Peru.
Yes.
While Noah tries to go get a new job. And right away you see with this scene that something's a little off here.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes for this security job interview, but the person who is interviewing him seems to know a little bit more than what he's letting on.
Right.
And he actually says, hey, we think that you should join our organization, and he gives him a business card. And I'll let you do the honors, Adam. What is the business card?
So before that, there's because there's this whole running gag in the film where anytime Noah and his brother would talk, they'd use code names, because the brother's like, oh no, the government secret organization is listening in, and sure enough, this supervisor's like, your brother was right, we are listening in. And this wall peels back, and there's all this chaos, military chaos going on in the background. Yeah. He disappears, the wall kind of closes back up.
Yeah.
It's like the wall to the Batcave, the bookshelf to the Batcave.
Right.
It was missing a couple of poles.
Yeah.
But I digress.
And a big dinosaur and a penny.
So he flips over the card, and it says G.I. Joe on it. At which point, look, I'm not, I never slept in a bed with sheets with G.I. Joe. Like, I'm not a ginormous G.I. Joe fan, but I do like the brand. And I've always thought that, hey, Paramount owns both of these franchises. It makes sense, because the comics have done it,
right,
to team them up.
Yeah, I had the G1 comics back in the day.
Right. But they never did, because both G.I. Joe movies crapped the bed, and so there was never an opportunity to mesh those, meld those worlds. But here, with that reveal of that card, it seems like now they're going to try and pepper G.I. Joe characters into the Transformers universe, and then maybe eventually retry spinning that off into a G.I. Joe franchise, which might be the smart way to go. Right? But I was excited by that, and I instantly thought to myself, all right, well, this better do well enough at the box office so that we get a chance to see this tease pay off.
Yeah, likewise.
Because I've been burned one too many times by post-credit nonsense. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But I call it nonsense because it never pays off. It started with Skeletor in 1987 when he said, "I'll be back." I'm still waiting. He ain't back yet. Come on, Mattel. What are you waiting for? Number one. And number two was Green Lantern when they had what's his name?
Sinestro.
What's the guy? I know it's
Mark Strong.
Mark Strong, the best guy you could get to ever play Sinestro. They put him in all that jazz, and then right at the end, he puts on the yellow ring, and we see the transformation. And oh my God, we're gonna get the yellow, the Sinestro Corps in the next movie. And what happens? The movie flops on its ass like an aerialist that doesn't know what they're doing. And here we are, still waiting to see the Sinestro Corps in live action. But maybe James Gunn will fix that. He was hoping to God.
Yeah.
When I have to start invoking religion because I don't get nonsense that I should get from post-credit stuff, this shows you how desperate we are as fandom. But anyway, so I hope that, like I said, I think it's long overdue, this potential crossover, or at least start to. I wouldn't suddenly go from solo Transformers movie to now we're going to include every G.I. Joe character on the back. Pepper them in, responsibly. Don't pull a BVS because that ain't the right way to do it. Clearly, but pepper them in slowly.
Is there any chance we get a "Why did you say that name" moment?
Well, I mean, listen. You can have all the Marthas you want in
Why'd you say that name?
In a Batman and Super, you can have all of two Marthas, but when you start peppering in, Wonder Woman, Batman in the Superman, in what was supposed to be the Superman sequel, and then, and it's not just here's what I want. Here's what I don't want. If you're gonna the G.I. Joe characters that you use have to have a purpose to serve it, to help service the Transformers movie you're telling. If they can do that, put as many G.I. Joe characters as you need. But if it's just there to say, look what's coming next, or we need to goose the box office, so let's put A, B, and C character in here, then that's the wrong way to go. Yeah. And BVS showed you that. So, and whatever you do, I do not want to see, a data drive, put it into a computer, and have videos of 5 different G.I. Joe characters explaining, the dossier of what military rank they are, how long they've been in service, their marital status. We don't need videos. If you're going to put them in there, I want to see the genuine article in there, not a video on a screen. That's never the way the Justice League should have been introduced to the audience, but I digress. So do it right. What I'm saying is they got to be integral to the story you're telling.
That's a good point.
And it's got to be done properly.
Any chance we get Sergeant Slaughter?
I want it.
Otherwise,
I'm going to call somebody at the studio maggot.
You puke.
Yeah. So,
you piece of human waste.
I love that scene, just because it was so cleverly done and didn't detract from, it didn't pull me out of the movie, which is important, right? So, and then the post-credit was just, Mirage revealing himself to Noah's buddy / criminal compatriot.
Reek.
Who was stealing the cars, but yeah, so it wasn't really much of in terms of integral to the plot, but anything else you want to mention before we rate it?
We talked about Peter Cullen and Ron Perlman. Peter Dinklage as Scourge did an amazing job. Yeah,
he was great. That guy is quite a talent. and he's been in a lot of geek-related properties.
Mm-hmm.
So much respect.
Yeah, a lot of respect for that guy. Yep.
Mr. Dinklage, for sure. All right, but that's final thoughts and a rating. Go ahead, Donnie.
Final thoughts. Yeah, this again, another step in the right direction for this franchise. Introducing new characters at a proper rate, keeping the story going, and I think keeping interest going, and also taking a bit of a risk, but one that could pay off greatly by including G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
We've seen the shared universes hit big with audiences, and I think this could be something that does that again.
Yeah, right. And so your rating would be letter grade?
So I will say this: I'm going to give it a B+.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I like it better than Bumblebee or equal to Bumblebee. I will say I didn't like it as much as the very first Transformers movie, but it was better than all the sequels that came after that, except for Bumblebee. So I have to go back and watch Bumblebee again.
Well, we're going to eventually. That's part of the.
Yeah. The sequence on Cybertron in Bumblebee was, like a dream come true.
My pen will be clicking furiously for Haley Steinfeld. I'll just warn everybody now.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this film. I thought, it is definitely a step in the right direction. The rehabilitation of the Transformers franchise on film continues. I thought, how many Transformers we have? How many movies we have now? This is the 7th, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I think
there are not counting the animated movie.
Yeah, I think there are a grand total of 3 times in this franchise of the 7 where I was truly invested in the human characters. This was one of the 3, along with Bumblebee and then the first movie, as you allude to. I thought visually was stunning. The Maximals, the Terracons look great. The Autobots once again looking more in line with their G1 counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
I got to give a shout out to the score, which was, I can't remember the name of the composer, but he's a new composer, but he smartly used some of Steve Jablonsky's cues in certain areas, which was well done.
I have the name right here, but
Go ahead, Donnie, earn that paycheck.
I'll try to say this, and I may butcher it, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I think it is Yannick Bontemps.
Yeah, there we go. That sounds about right. It'd be a lot worse if I did it. But yeah, I mean, so he created a really moving score, especially in the scene where we talked about with Optimus Primal having to save Elena. It was very powerful there. And when the Steve Jablonsky cue kicks in, when Noah saves Optimus Prime, there was a very good use of a past score and using it at the right time. So
yeah,
I like that. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I'm going to go with an A-, so slightly higher with you. I still think, in terms of pure joy and heart, I still got to give the edge to Bumblebee.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is in a tie with the first Transformers film for me. If the first Transformers gets an edge, it's only because of Megan Fox. I'll say.
Oh, okay.
But
I thought you were going to say the first time we saw Optimus fight Megatron, but no, you go right to Megan Fox.
No, that was a nice cherry on top of the cake, which was Megan Fox, Donnie. But yeah, so this is definitely my top 3 of the Transformers film franchise. It's in the upper echelon. Like I said, probably tied with the first Transformers, but below Bumblebee, and an A- for me. Yeah. But that wraps up our review of Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. We hope you liked it. If you haven't seen the film, sorry if we spoiled things for you, but it's a review. and the movie's now on digital, so it's open seasons on spoilers. But if you didn't watch it and this review motivates you to go watch it, check it out and let us know what you thought. But if you want to keep the conversation going about Transformers or any of the podcasts we did some shameless plugging for tonight, you can on social media. Donnie, where do they track you down?
You can find me on Twitter and TikTok as the Emerald Enthusiast. Also, check out my other YouTube channel where I do lots of product reviews, including Transformers.
Indeed. You can find me at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. You can find the Twitter handle of the podcast network at MMNPDC on Twitter. I'll go ahead and give you my, excuse me for looking at my phone, but I have to get the screen name because I have so many social media accounts now. I'm also on Threads.
Likewise. Just open my account.
Adam Basciano 83. I know I'm not going to spell it out. I'll put it in the description. But that's where I am on Threads if you want to find me there.
Yeah.
And we can continue the conversation if you deem you want to continue it there. But until next time, remember that Transformers Rise of the Beasts are forever. From the first time Mirage duplicates himself to get away from police to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.